none, we move right to conduct of business, item number 10. The first item is to receive an oral report on the 2011 4th of July fireworks activity.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Tonight we're going to present the oral report for the fireworks for 2011 season. I'll begin my report outlining the public education efforts. Prior to the holiday, city staff met with the permitted sales organizations to review procedures and safety precautions. Safe and sane flyers were posted at schools and locations throughout the city. All fireworks booths were inspected on opening day, and inspections continued through the holiday to ensure compliance. We also ran an article in the Focus magazine outlining the safety guidelines. We did receive several complaints prior to the holiday regarding concerns used of fireworks, especially in the Glenview neighborhood. A contractor was hired to mitigate the weeds on the vacant lots and canyon area in the Glenview area. From an operational standpoint, the fire department did staff a reserve engine with 3 personnel and an additional battalion chief on the 4th of July. The holiday weekend activity was similar to last year, as we ran about 12 calls on the period July 4th holiday 24-hour period. None of those responses were for fireworks-related incidents. On Sunday, July 3rd, we did have a grass fire on Goodwin Drive that was suspicious, but the investigation could not confirm illegal fireworks. There was obviously the usual illegal fireworks activity, as police department did confiscate 110 pounds of illegal fireworks. I do think we were fortunate for the rain on the June 28th that kept the moisture content in the grass and brush higher than normal. That concludes the report on the fire side, and I'll turn it over to Chief Telford for the law.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. Our pre-enforcement efforts included contacting those neighborhoods where we've experienced previous problems in years past. Officers deployed additional patrols in the days leading up to the 4th of July to warn residents of the dangers of illegal firework use and of the potential fines faced when we encountered a violator. We contacted 192 residents during our pre-enforcement efforts. Over the 8-day reporting period from June 28th to July 5th, we had 157 reports of firework violations. Last year, we also had 157 reports of firework violations. On the 4th of July, all police personnel were brought into work with the exception of those already scheduled for a 40-hour block of vacation. We also brought in officers from other jurisdictions to assist us. We regularly have, the city's divided up into 3 areas. So we had our normal patrol officers doubled up to handle the normal routine calls for service, and in addition to that, the additional personnel that we were brought in on the July 4th were assigned to enforcement teams equally in those 3 geographic regions. We also had 1 unit assigned solely to the Glenview area. On July 4th, we had 211 calls for service. Last year, we had 266 calls for service. While we had less calls this year, it seemed to me that the activity level was slightly higher, if not equal to, what we experienced last year. As the fire chief mentioned, I also received complaints from residents, and I received several complaints from residents on the latter part of the evening on July 4th and on July 5th. And their concern was, where were we? They had called and they didn't see anybody respond. As I tell you every year, our peak activity is from 8 o'clock at night to around midnight. This year it was roughly 8 o'clock at night to about 11 o'clock at night, but there were still violations that occurred afterwards. From that time, we had about 100 calls for service, and that's about a 3-hour period. Normally, we have 80 to 100 calls for service on a busy day. I think partly the reason for the complaints, and as you may already know, at approximately 8:50 p.m., our officers were assaulted when they attempted to make an arrest of an illegal firework violation. There were 6 individuals arrested during this incident, and as you can imagine, in addition to the injured officers, we had officers tied up handling those who were arrested, and we had also officers tied up investigating that crime. That was also at 8:50 in the evening, right when it began the peak of our activity. This may account for some of the calls and some of the complaints that why we weren't seen. However, we did redeploy our officers and enforcement teams were back out. We happened to make 10 arrests during the evening of July 4th. Officers encountered situations where the use of illegal fireworks was mixed in with the use of safe and sane, and it makes it difficult to tell and difficult to observe violations. Violations were observed throughout the city. There was no geographic region that was more prevalent than others. And once again, we did have patrols in all of those geographic regions. The total cost for our education and enforcement campaign is estimated at about $44,937. This amount is, again, attributed and referred back and taken out of the sales of safe and sane fireworks to reimburse us for our costs to provide education and enforcement campaign over the 4th of July holiday. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions if I can.
Any questions of the chiefs?
Through the chair.
Michael?
Chief Telford, based on your experience this year, would you estimate that we should consider maybe charging a bigger fee in future years and expanding your presence during the holiday?
Yes, you know, it's difficult because the 3 previous years we experienced a steady decline. You have one incident that can occur that just kind of throws your whole game plan off a little bit. So yes, we are going to reevaluate, we are going to look at our enforcement efforts, and I will likely be increasing our enforcement efforts next year.
And do you have any news on the condition of the officers that were injured that night? Are they all doing okay now?
All the officers are fine and have returned to work.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Rico?
Through the chair, could you refresh my memory, how many days does the city of San Bruno allow for fireworks sales?
It begins June 28th and it ends July 4th.
So
and we keep records to July 5th.
7 days, and I know in other areas that do have those, and I don't know if it's by the ordinance that was passed by the residents in the election of 2005, the time frame, is that time frame within that? Okay. Just a question or two came up from folks as potentially maybe offering it to be sold 5 or 6 days in lieu of the 7, as some other areas do. I know some groups even thought that'd be easier to try to staff it, because sometimes it's hard getting volunteers. Other groups have an easy time doing that. But if it's within the ordinance, then
yes, that specific detail, along with virtually all of the other specific requirements for the sale and use of safe and sane fireworks, is specifically articulated in the ordinance that was placed on the ballot in 2005. The City Council does not have the latitude to change that without a subsequent vote of the people.
Okay. Thank you for that. And my only comment is that I stopped by the station for the briefing and did a short ride along with Chief Telford. I would agree that his assessments as far as the evening's concerned, but once again, I always am appreciative and thankful of the officers and all the staff, because they're sworn, non-sworn, that are all on duty that night, obviously giving up their opportunity and the ability to be with family and friends in order to try to assist San Bruno in its celebration of 4th of July and meet what the residents had wished for in the election of 2005. So I was very saddened when I heard about the folks being accosted and assaulted allegedly by the residents in this incident, and I'm glad that they're doing fine. But again, I want to offer my thanks to the fire and the police for their diligent effort, their education, and their service to the community during that holiday.
And one more comment. I agree with Councilmember Medina, but a few things that I have to say. I happened to be with the chief in a ride-along when that call came in, and as the chief said, no monetary cost for the city. It's paid for by the people that buy, you know, safe and sane fireworks. There was a cost to the city. We lost 5 officers that evening, some minor injuries and some more serious, but we lost 5 officers, and we lost the ability to put all of those officers on the street. It was pretty scary. I did not, at the chief's suggestion, get out of the car, but I was at the incident, and there were more red lights than that looked like a fireworks show on its own, just because of the response that was there. Pretty scary, pretty scary. And then we went back to the station and visited the officers who were there and being cared for, as well as some of these very, very bad, I won't say alleged perpetrators. They were perpetrators, pretty nasty people, that in fact caused a lot of this injury. So I got a lot of inquiries, some in writing, some verbal, some emails, regarding why can't you as a city council stop this fireworks? Why can't you do this? Well, we can't. We put it, as Mr. Medina said, before the voters, which I objected to, actually. I'll be happy to say that in 2005, and the overwhelmingly wanted fireworks. And it's mostly because, obviously, the very, very quick fundraising that takes place over a very short period of time. Totally understandable from a financial standpoint. So it's not up to this council. We're doing the very best we can with what we have. It was just a very freak incident that occurred that evening, a very scary incident that occurred that evening, and it did cost us. It cost us some officers that evening, which was scary enough, and it cost us the fact that we couldn't put all of those officers on the street. So to those people that criticized, I want you to understand, I understand it's frustrating out there to listen to what sounds like professional fireworks shows and totally illegal M1000s and M80s out on the street. But we tried the very best that evening, and any small incident like that or large incident can actually make a difference in our best planning, and that's what happened that evening. So I do commend the officers for doing what they had to do. They drive around a lot, and this time it was more than driving. It was very, very scary, and I hope they're all doing well. So thank you very much.